Hello everyone, welcome. Today I would like to show you the RealWorld Designer application. This is supposed to be an all-in-one application with everything that other RealWorld editors can do. You can do in this one. Therefore, it's more complicated than the other one, and it's not suitable for people that do not have experience with the other applications. So we already have a question here. Will you bring 3D to RealWorld Paint in later versions too? I don't think so. I think RealWorld Paint should remain as it is with raster and vector, support for raster and vector graphics, and 3D should be for more experienced people in this more complicated application. But it will look, the editor will look just like RealWorld and work just like RealWorld Paint. If you create an image here, everything works just like in RealWorld Paint. The only difference is that in this create menu you can also create mouse cursors and icons, and that you can create use 3D layers. The 3D layers are still a work in progress, so there are problems with them. It will hopefully get better in the future. So we have already demonstrated 3D functionality in RealWorld Paint in older versions. So today I'd like to talk mostly about 3D in the cursor editor. You can create mouse cursors in RealWorld Designer. As you can see, you can create all these document types, icons, cursors, images, and the old, very old unicorn 3D objects in RealWorld Designer. So I already have this 3D model of the umbrella. I have created these pink umbrella cursors many years ago, and they are available on my profile on the web. But I was using the old, very old RealWorld cursor editor with 3D at that time, and it was relatively complicated to create an animated 3D cursor in the old cursor editor. In RealWorld Designer, in the current version, it should be much easier, and you can download the preview version, this one I am using here. You can download it from this page, RealWorld Designer, rw-designer.com/RealWorld-Designer, and here is a link to the zip file of the preview version. So it should be working right now. So let's look at this cursor I have created here. It has an empty raster layer, I can delete that, and it has a 3D layer here. And inside this 3D layer there is this 3D model of the umbrella. I can these are the files with the old cursor set, and I have an umbrella model here, so I can open that one, and you can see what I have created many years ago. It's a very simple 3D model, and in Unicorn 3D you can add parameters to the 3D model, and this one has 4 parameters, and you can see I have created a 3D layer here, and then I have just dragged and dropped this 3D model of the umbrella like this on the canvas on the 3D layer and added this one. And when it's here, I can move it around on the canvas, I can rotate it, and I can zoom it in and out. But if you make it too large, it will take a long time to compute, so don't do it. You have seen the glitch a moment ago. That was because I have increased the size of this 3D model too much. So don't do it. So you can position this 3D model on this canvas, and this is a 64 times 64 pixels cursor. So I've placed the 3D model here, and when it is selected, I have access to this properties panel, and here you can see the 4 parameters that are defined inside the Unicorn 3D file, and I can change the values of these parameters here in the 3D layer. So for example, this one rotates the umbrella. This one closes and opens the umbrella. This one hides the pink part and leaves just this hole. And this one controls how many sections the umbrella has. If I change it, for example, to 3, it doesn't look much like an umbrella. Maybe 5. It has 5 sections, but the default is 7, and it's probably the best, but you can use more if you want more. So let's keep it at 9. You can see that there are glitches. Maybe make it slightly smaller. So when you want to be able to quickly adjust the properties of the 3D model while creating a cursor, it is a good idea to add parameters to your 3D model, because otherwise you would have to always open this 3D editor and then make the modification and then reload the 3D models here, and it will take too much time if you want to iterate and improve your designs. But I can, for example, add a new parameter here. Let me add a vector variable, change its subtype to color. Let's call it color. And now let's find here the material. Let's copy this value, put it here, and you can then use parameters, but this will be a bit complicated. Which one should I use? Let's try this one. probably not. Oh, let's do it. RGB, it looks slightly different, but never mind. Let's save this file and we can try to reload the 3D model, and it did just that. But I don't see the parameters here anymore. What's the problem with this? Let's save it and open it again. There are bugs, as you can see. Yeah, it didn't reload correctly previously. It's still a preview version. So I have added a new parameter here that controls the color. And now I can change the color of the 3D model here. Let me check comments quickly. No new comments, okay. So, in the old version, no, not in my original cursor set with the umbrella, I have a busy cursor where the umbrella rotated. So, how would I now create this rotating umbrella? I will first duplicate this frame and on the second frame I will rotate the umbrella by how many degrees should I should rotate it by the full 360 degrees, because this hook here should rotate the whole 360 degrees. So let me now select both of these frames and use the morph function, and let me generate, for example, let's say 12 steps, and it has generated 12 new frames. And when we inspect these frames, we will see that the rotation angle here is changing. And on this preview, I am not sure how good you can see it on the video, but I can see that it is rotating maybe too fast, and because 360 degrees and 0 degrees is the same, it means that these two frames are the same. I should probably delete this last frame because there is a hiccup because the frames are the same. So let me delete it and maybe slow down the rotation a bit. So now I have a cursor with the orange umbrella that is rotating. It wasn't too hard to create that. Much faster in the new version with the morph function and 3D layers than it was in the old cursor editor with 3D. So the morph function can interpolate for these parameters here. If I, for example, instead of rotating the umbrella, if I wanted to create an umbrella that changes colors, I hope it won't. Maybe sorry for that. So there is another bug, as you can see. It's still a preview version, so let's close that and start it again. do we have noise? That's not. I won't start this one because it's in Czech language. Let me start. Should be the correct one. It's in English. We don't have. I would have to open the files again. Which one is this one? So, okay, we have a pinkish umbrella here. Let's use very pink color. This is too much, like this one. And again, duplicate the frame, change the color on this frame, for example, to this yellow. As you can see, the animation now just blinks between pink and yellow. This is pretty aggressive yellow, this one. So select both of these frames, use the morph function, and let's generate 8 frames this time. And you can see that it created 8 frames, and the color is changing. If I wanted to change it back smoothly from the yellow to this pink, I will select these generated frames, copy them, and then paste them back. It will put them here at the end of the animation. Then I will select them again and use this reverse frame order button. It will reverse the frame order of the selected frames. And now I should probably speed up the animation a bit. Now we have a cursor where the umbrella changes color. So this is how you can create animated cursors with 3D models. You of course first have to create a 3D model, and if you want to make the things easy for you, you should add parameters to your 3D model. You can place more than one 3D model into a 3D layer. Let me place just 2 copies of the umbrella cursor here. So if you drag and drop cursor here, it will add another 3D model, and you can position it as you see fit. Now I have 2 umbrellas on this single frame, and I can select the one I want to modify, and I can set different parameters for each of these 2 umbrellas. And when you are creating the cursors and you want, for example, animate only part of them, you can create 2 3D models, one that, for example, stays in place, and the other one that moves. And when you use the morph function, and you have 2 frames, one with the 3D object here, another with 3D object here, it will create intermediate frames with the 3D object moving. Okay, that's probably enough about cursors. Let me quickly check comments. We have one new comment. Will the morph go to the farthest or nearest way if I move the color to the back? I'm not sure what you mean by that. If you move the color back. You can only interpolate between two frames, two selected frames. I'm not sure why. Okay, let me delete these frames. And you should always have two frames that are the edges of the animation. But if you have more than that, for example, on the second frame, let me move this umbrella here, and then let me duplicate this frame again, and now on the third frame I will change the color of the umbrella of the second one, and now I can select these two and use the morph function to generate, for example, 4 new frames between these two. You can see that now the green umbrella slowly moves, and if I select these two and generate 4 frames between them, then it will change the color of the umbrella here. If you wanted, you could have multiple keyframes and change color on each of them, for example from green to orange, and on the third frame have green again, and you can then select the two neighbor frames and generate the intermediate frame between them. And then you can have a transition, you can generate the transition from green to orange, and then for example to yellow, and for example to green back. So I'm not sure whether that answers your question or not, but I hope it did. Yeah, it should, but be careful and save often. You can see that the application is not extra stable. The 3D layers are a bit, let's say, fragile. You can do this for cursors. You can do this for animated images. If you use this new image wizard with create as animated image and create a 3D layer here, add maybe let's add something else than the umbrella. I had this very old cursor with a table tennis. It may still work. Yeah. So this is a 3D model, very simple, of a table tennis racket with a ping pong ball. It has some parameters. I don't remember what they do. What does this 50? Yeah, it rotates. It rotates the racket. So this is like the old RealWorld Paint, and you can do the same again. Duplicate, and for example on the second one let's use 180. So it flipped the racket, and let's use the morph function. That should be enough. So it rotates we can check the preview. So you should be able to create animations, animated cursors, animated images with 3D models without problems. It also works for icons. You can use 3D layers for icons. So you create a 3D layer here with this command, then add a 3D layer there, a 3D object there, position it as you see fit. It's too big. So we can see all the previews for the various icon sizes here. You can choose to adjust the content size automatically. It will then will attempt to fill the available space. It seems it works almost. So this is how you can quickly create an icon with 3D models. You have to of course first create the 3D models. Currently I think only Unicorn's 3D objects are supported. Yes. Maybe also 3ds files may work. This I haven't touched this importer from 3D Studio for a long time, and you can try to download some 3ds files from the internet and try them in the 3D layer. They may work, they may not work. We will see about supporting more 3D file types. And then not this one. So now is this right moment to ask your questions. There are not many people watching, so you can, if you are watching this from replay, you can post questions there. This seems to be 4 minutes in the past. If I import a 3D object from a new version, will it work on the older versions? From a new version of what? The Unicorn 3D didn't change in a long time. There were some minor changes related to colors and such, but in general the 3D models should work. If you create them in the new version and then use them in old version of the icon editor or something like that, the 3D model should work. The images or icons with or cursors with 3D layers will in general not work in the older versions, because the 3D layers are new, relatively new. They were in older previews, but not in the released the old version of any of the old RealWorld applications. So are there more questions? If not, I will have a next stream again in 3 weeks as usual. And if you find any problems or have suggestions of what to work on first, just let me know in the comments under the video or on Discord or in the forums on the web. Okay, so no new questions. Have a nice rest of the day and see you again in 3 weeks.